But yeah, Terry Bradley with Mile High Cyber. So they go through and they do, basically inspections. They audit what we do, make sure that things are set up properly. Because if I had a wall to my house, right, I got to get the county to come out and make sure it's actually level and straight and have the right number of outlets. There's nothing like that in the cyber world, unless you're in healthcare, and then the government requires some level of auditing. And then on the federal space, they're adding it with CMMC compliance. If you're in banking, there's a little bit more and stuff, or a lot more. But so anyways, thanks for joining us, Terry. We've worked with him for, gosh, what, 5 or 6 years now?
It's been a while.
So, yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Keith Pierce is with our accounting team, and Heidi. Christelle Stegman's down at Prowers Medical Center, and Jazzy is she runs animal ER care. And so if you ever have a sick pet at 2:00 in the morning, they're up there by Costco. They're also over at Carefree and Academy area. Fantastic people. So, and then Bianca is with Active Release Technique, right, Bianca?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you guys train soft tissue repair, right?
Yes, we do.
Awesome. So, so last month we talked about artificial intelligence. This month we're going to talk a little bit about AI, but we're going to talk about, and then Daniel is our business relationship manager, account manager. He's the guy that goes out and talks to all of our clients and makes sure that they're aligned and have all the tools that they need to protect themselves. But yeah, last month we talked about AI, which is a little more fun than talking about breaches and stuff, because we talked about AI, and we'll have a recording out there posted at some point. It's with our marketing team to clean it up. But we talked about how to use it to create documentation, how to do research, how can it run your business better, regardless what your business is. AI and ChatGPT can really help you out. But then we're looking at this one, wanted to get into a little more serious stuff, especially with some of the things that have come up. Terry and I were chatting about, gift card scams are one thing, but just last week, CDK Global, which runs auto sales software, got breached. Shut down about a third of the nation's auto dealers. Week before that, someone got terminated at a healthcare organization, and that organization lost thousands of medical records. And so we want to kind of talk through what the risks are, and then how can we mitigate them a little bit. And some of it does take tools, but there's a lot that you guys can do to make sure you don't fall victim to those attacks. So and then I like this to be a bit interactive, so as we're going through, please ask questions, chat, whatever, and we can get your questions answered as we go through this. So Terry, what happened with CDK?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Blake, and I don't think they've made any detailed statements of what happened, but I think it's fairly well accepted that they had a ransomware event. That's what caused them to have to take their network down. And pretty much all ransomware events follow a similar pattern. There is the initial access where the cyber threat actors get into the corporate network. This could be through email phishing. It could be through VPN, with some weak credentials or compromised credentials, or could be that they got in through some developer workstation who someone who's working from home, or a third party. So somehow the bad guys get inside the network, and once they do get inside the network, they start looking for the common security misconfigurations and missing security updates that we typically look at when we do those penetration tests or the security audits that you mentioned. And those things are very prevalent on internal networks. We tend to do a pretty good job of defending the outside network from the internet, but once you're on the inside of the network, there's generally a lot of vulnerabilities and security flaws. And so the bad guys undoubtedly found some of those, took over the CDK network, and then pushed out encryption software to all their important systems, which prevented them from operating until they pay some kind of a ransom.
Yeah. And which is horrible for CDK and their internal staff. But if we all use cloud systems now, right? So Jazzy, you probably use a cloud hosted EHR, or are they electronic health records? What do you guys call them in veterinary care?
Well, we use EasyVet, so but yeah, it's just a cloud system that holds all our records. So
Yeah. And Christelle, you've got some tools on the cloud, and I'm sure that, everybody does. And it's pretty easy. So we have tools that will back up 365 or Google Apps or some of the other cloud-based tools that our clients use. And they've made that pretty easy to add on. But my guess is EasyVet and CDK and, even QuickBooks on the cloud, don't make it the easiest to back up, though, do they, Terry? And how do we know if they're backing up?
No, I think when you have vendors like CDK or other, third parties that you're relying on to protect your data and do functions for your business, you can ask for information like a SOC 2 report, which says they're doing some basic security measures. They have a security policy and controls in place, but there's no guarantee that they've got everything covered. A great example is a Change Healthcare data breach. They had extensive security mechanisms in place. They had multi-factor authentication on their email and certain systems, but they didn't have multi-factor authentication on everything. So their Citrix systems did not have multi-factor authentication, and that's where the attackers got in.
So if they're telling us, if they've got this SOC report, right? And if you're a client of any of these cloud solutions, can you ask for their SOC report, their SOC 2 report?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think any vendor should be willing to share that with you. It's not, if you have a business relationship with them, there's nothing sensitive in there. It's basically their assurance to you that, that they're doing security. You might even ask, do you have third-party penetration testing? And typically when we prepare a penetration test report for one of our customers, we give them not only the detailed report that has all the sensitive information about security findings, but we also give them a redacted version that they can share with their clients and vendors and business partners.
Okay. So now you go and you do this test, but Change Healthcare as a health organization definitely was audited by one, if not several organizations. We talked about Nuance, but still there's errors that happen and they get breached. And if we don't have backups of it, and all of us with the, need to do what you guys do is some sort of tabletop exercise, right? What if you come in the morning on Monday morning and your solution doesn't open up? Are you ready for an hour or a week or a month?
Right. Yeah, I think this is where we get into, preparedness for a security incident. I think in the past, a lot of organizations were in the business of trying to dodge the bullet. They figured, well, if we do security, maybe we can avoid having some sort of a security incident, or, if we keep a low profile, it won't happen to us. I think nowadays everyone recognizes that you're going to have a security incident of some size at some point in the future. And so that preparedness is important. When your trusted vendor drops the ball, or maybe they, have had a mistake of some kind, a misconfiguration, that preparedness involves working through what happens if we lose access to CDK, what happens if we lose access to, fill in the blank of your software vendor that you're relying on. Have you thought about what the paper processes look like? Do you have, perhaps maybe a basic system that you could use for keeping track of transactions? Those are the kind of things that are good to tabletop before the actual incident happens.
Yeah, because there's always something that can happen and we don't have control over it. Even if it's, somebody trenches. We had one client that there was a, ditch witch or whatever, went out there and trenched the line and they were down for a day. So, what do you do with the patients, or you do with the pets? What happens at our CPAs when April 14th, that somebody, cuts the fiber outside the building, and you're down for a day or two until they get out there and do it. So
I
it's
like to
good.
tell people to think of prevention, detection, and response. We certainly want to put in security measures to prevent bad guys from getting in, but we also have to have detection measures and response plan, just like with your own house. If you want to keep the bad men out of your house, you put locks on the doors. You might even put bars on the window. But at some point, you can't keep spending money on prevention. You need to switch over to detection, get an alarm system, motion sensors, glass break detectors, and then you have some response measures ready to go. So in the case of your home alarm, the police come and respond to the alarm. In the case of a cybersecurity incident where you've now detected bad guys on your network, you need to have an incident response plan and have practiced that, so you know this is exactly what we're going to do if this happens.
Yeah, and it's it's great when Terry takes us through them because he asks all sorts of deep questions. But you can do this on your own. Go out and the big thing is just to think about the high risk that the critical systems that you have, and if you can't access them, what do you do? The other nice thing is if you have somebody that's super smart in there that knows where everything is, and we did this with Christelle down at their hospital, is all of a sudden you remove some key person from the equation. Because it's one thing, Jazzy has so much stuff in her brain from being there for 10 years. She knows what she's going to do or more for a long time. But if all of a sudden Jazzy is out on vacation, I used to say, hit by a truck or something horrible, but we don't want to kill Jazzy. We like her. So she's on vacation somewhere without cell phone coverage, and then Easy Vet goes down. How do you proceed on paper? Because you need to be able to keep those patients coming in, because, if you can't process the patients, and you have another vet available, people don't want to wait in line when they're in crisis mode. They'll go take their pet, somewhere else, and then they meet a new vet, and it costs you money. So it's worth the time. So go out and, Terry does fantastic helping out with this kind of stuff, but you can also just go out and just start walking through the what ifs and work through them. So any questions on that before we move on to AI threats that are out there, to why, just reinforce why there's risks out there? Okay. So last month we talked AI. We talked about the cool things of AI. Then one of the things that happened here at our office is I started getting texts from a couple of employees going, hey, I just got a text from you wanting to go get gift cards. Now, our guys, we lived this stuff. Thankfully, none of them ran over to Target, whatever, to get gift cards. But the unique thing was, we have company cell phones for some people. Other people use their personal cell phones. The personal cell phones are not, they're not listed on our website. They're not listed anywhere public. They're not in people's signature blocks. And so we went back and did some discovery of, so somebody sent one to one of our engineers, Brian, said, hey, Brian, it's Blake. I need you to go buy these. And so they knew my name. They knew I was, important in my mind. They knew Brian. They knew he was one of our technicians. But the question was, how did they find their cell phone? And then that's where their personal cell phone, that's nowhere on any of our documentation. And so that's where it gets scary and cool from an AI standpoint, is if we go look at our website. So one of the things, can you guys see my website there? So one of the things that we use is this tool called Seamless AI. And so, if you've gone out and used ChatGPT, if you've used Copilot or Jasper or any of those, that they just browse the entire internet and grab all this stuff and put it into, and they sort through it and they correlate different bits of data. So I opened up our website, I went to OpenAI, and lo and behold, here is all the contacts it finds at OpenAI. Now my COO is pretty simple. I'm pretty simple. My stuff's out there all over the place. I publish it. It's easy to find me. But then we got down to James, who's the guy that said, "Hey, how in the world did this happen to my personal cell phone?" And what it did is, it's able to find James's LinkedIn, his Twitter, if you can see that, or his X, his Facebook, and his Google information. And out of there, then it ties in, probably on his LinkedIn, so that, he has contact information out there for people that want to hire him. Hopefully he doesn't leave. He's a great guy. But it then ties in that. So now all that some hacker has to do is use AI to go, well, Blake is the CEO. James Guernsey is one of his technicians and, seems to be an important guy. So now we're going to text this personal cell phone and make it sound important. So it's interesting, and it's super easy how ChatGPT and how AI has made life super, a lot easier for us, that the bad guys are using it even more aggressively. So that's why we need to be extra vigilant about not responding to, these texts and stuff that come in. So,
Blake, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, we list our cell phones on our signature blocks.
Yeah.
Do you think with the advent of AI, do you think we're putting ourselves at risk by having our personal cell phones in signature blocks?
I don't know about in your signature block. I mean, we can probably find you anyways, because it's probably on your LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, probably.
And so if it's out there, they're going to find it, right? So, oh wait, I wanted to go to Wicklow and Associates. Okay, so they've been our CPAs, I don't know, for like 15 years. So if you need a CPA, give them a call. They're great people. So if I go there, oh, for some reason it hasn't found you at Wicklow and Associates.
That's because he won't give me his bio and picture.
Oh, is that why?
I have reasons other than AI
Yeah.
not to provide that information.
No, it's not 100%. But, I don't do things like, I don't do autoresponders. That's what my Cyber Saturday video was a week and a half ago. And I don't do autoresponders because that gives the attackers a whole lot of information. I was in Europe with, bad coverage and stuff. So what am I going to put on there? Hey, thanks for reaching out. I'm on vacation in Europe with my wife. I'll have bad coverage for the next week and a half, or I won't be checking in. And, please reach out to my COO, Janelle, or to so-and-so if it's something important. So then somebody that sends me a phishing email or an attack is going to get that bounce back. And then it's super easy then they've got most of the information to mount an attack on our company, right? Hey, Janelle, it's Blake. I'm somewhere between Rudesheim and Strasbourg, and I have zero coverage, but I got this email from our insurance company. They're going to drop us if we don't pay this $10,000, bill or something in the next 24 hours. I trust you can get this done, right? And that's one of the ways that they're doing research to attack your company. So, but just in your signature block, to me, I don't know, Terry.
Well, I always try to not rely on security through obscurity. I mean, it's not a bad place to start. You don't need to advertise your personal information, but ultimately the bad guys are going to find you. So knowing how to respond, training your employees to know how to recognize the scams and attacks, I think that's where you want to focus your time and energy. We make a lot of assumptions when we start hiding our contact information. The place they're going to get it is from our email or from our website. Bad guys have access to lots of different information sources, so you can't really hide from them.
Yeah. Now, I also come from an Army background, so operational security was big when I was with a combat unit. You didn't share anything about where you were, you're very careful of what you shared with the family and everything else. So that's kind of the approach I take. If I go on vacation, I don't post videos and stuff while I'm on vacation, saying, hey, I'm out of town, because, then you get the daughter's drugged out boyfriend that comes and breaks in your house or something. It's even, it's physical security too. Okay, my daughter doesn't have a drugged out boyfriend, so so I didn't just misalign or malign him, right? So just be careful. It's just another reason why we always want to be very careful about jumping in. Now the other, and so being very discerning when you get this information. Hey, Aaron, nice to see that you joined us. Thank you. And is we want to be careful when we get those texts, but also when we get emails from anybody, even if they look 100% legitimate. I have just stopped clicking on anything in email unless it comes seconds after I talk to someone and they're like, we're going to send over your cyber policy. You just need to click and sign it. We had a client who got an email from somebody that they knew last week, and they knew and they trusted it, and it came through, and they just followed the link in the email, and it asked them for their Microsoft credentials, and they went ahead and put it in. And because they trusted it, and because it was from a trusted sender, somebody else lost their credentials. It made it right through the email security filter because it was a trusted person. They clicked on it, didn't think anything about it, and just typed in their username and password. Always, always, always go out to whatever website they're trying to get you to go to and type in that address. And if they're sending you a link that you think you might need to click on, pick up the phone and call them. Not the phone that's in the signature block, because it's easy to change that, Keith. You got a good point. The signature block phone numbers, but call the front desk of wherever it's coming from and ask to speak to the person and find out if they legitimately sent it. Because what ended up happening is then they got this lady's credentials, and then a bunch of emails went out from her email account. They went through as trusted. We were able to shut it all down, but it was a little bit of stress. They didn't end up getting anything, but it was a good exercise in scared or in bad behavior.
So Blake, I think we're pretty well trained not to click on links, but our clients send us a lot of documents in the form of PDFs.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, can we trust that? I mean, is there a risk there on clicking on PDF documents?
Yeah.
I guess there's a risk in anything, right?
There's a risk in anything. And yeah, you guys get so much stuff, if they're going through the cloud hosted email security, that should catch viruses and stuff or attacks, but it's not 100%. And Terry, correct me as I'm going through this, but you also have a customer portal that you should be directing for them to load up most of their files, which those should be filtered once they get up, because it's specific for CPAs and stuff. But Terry, what do you do if you're in a CPA business and people are sending you, all these W-9s and receipts and everything else, besides just having email security? I mean, they've got to open them up at some point, right?
Yeah. So two things, I think, specifically with PDF documents. Common attack that we see quite a bit of is PDF documents that have links to external sites. So you get a PDF, the antivirus program says, yep, it's a PDF, nothing bad with this PDF. But inside the PDF, there's a link to a fake login page. So it goes back to that security awareness training of knowing what the actual Microsoft login pages are, and you shouldn't be typing your username and password into some random website just because it was in a link to a PDF. The other thing that is possible with PDFs is that if your Adobe Reader or your PDF reader software is out of date, just opening the PDF might be enough to get your system compromised. So making sure that you're keeping up with security updates and not opening up PDFs from just random people. There is also a low cost, in fact, it's a free cost website out there called Joe's Sandbox. And if you go out to joesandbox.com, you can upload a PDF and they will execute it for you in their sandbox and then send you a report and say this is malicious or this is, safe PDF. But you have to know enough about what Joe's sandbox is telling you to be able to interpret the results.
There's also a couple websites that will test links, right?
Yeah, VirusTotal will test a link. And so you can also upload a PDF to VirusTotal. That's owned by Google now. So VirusTotal will run that PDF against 50, 60, 70 different antivirus programs. But again, if the PDF has a link inside of it that takes you to a bad site, that's not going to trigger a virus scanner.
Ooh, okay. So is it virustotal.com?
Yep.
Okay, I'm throwing that in there. So, but if I get a link in an email, then are you saying I can go drop it into VirusTotal and it'll check that link as well?
Yes, and if anyone's reported that link as being malicious or suspicious, then VirusTotal will tell you that. But it could be that no one's reported it yet. So I kind of like the Joe Sandbox approach. It'll open up the PDF. It'll take screenshots of what the PDF looks like on the inside, and that'll give you some clues as to whether or not this is a legit PDF or something just trying to redirect you to some other website. The other thing with PDFs as well is that there's no guarantee that even if it's a clean PDF and it doesn't lead you to a fake login page, that the content is really legitimate. Meaning, a lot of PDFs that I get are telling me about some software that I've renewed or that needs to be renewed, and really what the attack is they just want me to call them back so they can try to extort money out of me, either by convincing me that I owe them money or by telling me that I have tech support problems. And those are callback scams, and those sometimes come in PDFs as well.
Oh, yeah. So it'll actually go check and make sure that the website is clean. So that's pretty cool. So virustotal.com. All right. Now, speaking of callbacks, one of the things we did we'll move on from that a little bit, is getting phone calls. We've seen the ones where it pops up on your screen, you click on the wrong link and it says, oh my gosh, you've got a virus, please call this number, call Microsoft support. They sound very legitimate when you call them. We got one into the office and I did a Cyber Saturday tip on it. Is I got one that actually called in and it was QuickBooks, saying QuickBooks tech support. And when I was talking to the QuickBooks tech support guy, it was the exact same thing as when I've talked to people that have called the number that pops up on your web browser that says, oh my gosh, you got viruses, call. And you end up somewhere else in the world and they start sounding very legitimate that, wait, Microsoft has done an update or QuickBooks has done an update. We need to remote in and fix it. We got to report that your QuickBooks update didn't work. Well, the last time QuickBooks tried to help me with anything, I think it was probably 20 years ago. But I called them back. I recorded it. It's kind of funny to go listen to it, my discussion with them. But they ended up, what they do is they have you go look at files on your computer, and they have you pull up files that look like they might be scary. And you have, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of legitimate files on your computer that just the average person can't decipher. Terry's smart. Maybe he knows what a lot of them are, but they take you to this folder that looks like it might be scary stuff. And they're like, oh, you have that. You must have a virus, or yeah, that's a sign that QuickBooks didn't update. And then they ask you to go to a web page. They ask you to type in a code. There's nothing scary there. They take you to a legitimate site like TeamViewer or something else that's a really legitimate remote control software. But once they have you in there, then the actions that they can take give them remote access to your computer to where then they end up deploying something malicious. Might be ransomware, might be something else. So the only time you ever give access for someone to remote control your computer is when you pick up the phone and you call the 800 number listed for Intuit or the 800 number listed for Microsoft. And if you can get to any one of their technicians, I'm impressed. But you should never have anybody reach out to you except for our guys when they're calling you back from a ticket, but and letting them remote in. So that's very dangerous. And they're getting way better at it.
Sorry, Blake, my dad just had an experience exactly like that, and it was pretty scary for him. So I just want to like snip that whole thing and send it to him. So. Oh
yeah, it happens all the time, and young people fall victim to it. I was going to say old people, but your dad's probably my age. So
I was like, Dad, no. And I told him the exact same thing. I was like, you need to be the one calling them, not them, asking for like access and things. So it was quite the learning experience for him. So.
Yeah. And those pop-ups aren't malicious in and of themselves. They're not infecting you. They're just asking you to call an 800 number. And so you call that, and that's when you get into trouble. So yeah, tell your dad he's definitely not alone. Did he do anything? Did they get access to his computer?
So there was like alarms blaring, and so he actually was so annoyed by the sounds going off that he just shut his device off and then called them and said, hey, like you need access or something. And then he finally was like, this doesn't make sense in my head. I'm going to call my daughter. And then he called me and then put me the three-way on the phone. And then they ended up asking if I was drunk when I was talking on the phone. And I was like, no, I'm asking like appropriate questions of like who you guys are. And then, yeah, so it clicked. So
yeah, no, that's good. So good you helped him
Blake,
protect himself from getting attacked.
Has
Yeah, Heidi?
anybody out there seen the movie The Beekeeper?
Yeah.
So that's what reminds me of this.
Oh yeah.
So you're gonna go blow up buildings for us if this happens?
Yeah. Who's the Mark who's the guy that makes the glitter bombs, Terry, that used to work for space or used to work for
he's a NASA scientist.
Yeah.
He's great. I love
He's got a lot of great videos out there on YouTube.
He actually worked with the government to crack down a big calling scam in India.
Yeah.
They shut down 3 facilities in India.
Yeah, that's a great video series. What he ended up doing was he managed to infiltrate it over months, and he got people to bring in like lunch pails full of rats, and they ended up doing. They made like the hand soap in the bathroom, like turn your hands blue and stuff. He really screwed with them, and then they ended up turning them over to the government and got them shut down. But
these are wonderful.
did you find it, Terry? The guy's name?
Yeah, Mark Rober.
Yeah, Mark Rober. So his videos are hilarious. So
yeah, he used to work. He used to work for NASA.
Yeah,
it's in the space program.
Super nerd. So, so a few things that we talked about. Oh, the other thing to worry about with fake emails and stuff is I've been getting a rash of changing direct deposits. So make sure, and this kind of goes into the next thing we're going to talk about is how we can sell you all sorts of stuff to protect your house and layers, just like ADT can, and putting bars on your windows, padlocks, deadbolts, all this stuff, alarm systems, armed response. There's lots of layers you can go. So much of this is just stuff that you guys can deal with internally for just a little bit of no cost or low cost. It doesn't negate the need for antivirus and cloud hosted email security and email backups and server backups and managed detection response and all that. It just something that you can do now is go out and create some policies so that because some of the emails are go to make a direct deposit, right? We talked about me traveling, someone reaching out to Janelle and saying, hey, make sure you change this, is nothing is ever so urgent that it needs to be done now. So you need a policy, you need a policy that you talk about with your leadership team and with your accounting team, is that we don't pay, regardless what happens, we don't pay new vendors or change a direct deposit without, at least a couple people taking a look at it and contacting the person or the organization that direct deposit is for. Because that's probably one of the biggest ones where, Terry and I think Terry's dealt with this. People have written checks, really big checks, and companies have lost, over $1 million sending checks to the wrong place. So
yeah, the FBI calls that business email compromise. Usually it happens when a user inbox gets taken over by a threat actor, and then they concoct some sort of a scam or a scheme to reroute payment information, add new vendors, essentially get themselves paid. And this is, by far and away more serious than ransomware. As serious as ransomware is, a lot more money is lost every year from business email compromise than these payment scams. Really? I didn't realize that. If you look at the FBI, they put out a report every year, the Internet Crime Center, the IC3. If you look, they've got a chart of the incidents they handled in the past year according to the dollar amount. And ransomware is about 1/10 what business email compromise has in losses. But the number one loss the FBI handles each year is not ransomware or business email compromise. It's investment scams that are conducted over the internet. Wow. Didn't know that. An investment scam like what? So tricking you into investing money into a Ponzi scheme or some investment that isn't legitimate. Huh. Yeah, and so you can go out and write all these policies using ChatGPT. Say, hey, I need a policy on protecting against business email compromise or changing paying vendors. But we have basically a standing policy that we talk about somewhat regularly, because it's one thing to put it into writing, put it in a 3-ring binder and put it up on a shelf to say, we got a policy, so when Terry comes and audits us, we can pass. This is definitely one to make sure that you live is don't change vendors, don't change vendor addresses, don't change vendor routing numbers unless you have a couple people, internal human multi-factor authentication on doing that. So same thing on direct deposit changes is, I get emails from the employees all the time saying, hey, please change my direct deposit. Now they get stuck in our spam filter. They don't come through to me, but it is funny. Obviously some people are responding to this, not us, but other companies, is that you don't change a employee direct deposit without actually getting a piece of paper or something saying, hey, this is really me, and I want you to change my direct deposit over to Wells Fargo. And not just replying to that email and asking for a signed PDF, but actually going and seeing the human. So and then I just dropped a link to that FBI report in the chat. Okay. Page 21 has a list of all the different types of cases the FBI handled over the course of 2023, ranked, ordered by the number of dollars lost. Awesome. And then probably the other thing that we see that is cost you nothing to fix is clean up your old employees. Especially critical for as a CPA or dealing with donors information, Aaron, or something like that, or healthcare is we've seen this with clients in the past that someone's left and they did not let us know, or they did not audit everything that employee had access to, and then something bad that employee, it's crazy. Most people we know, the people I know on this call, I don't think would ever do anything bad, but you don't know until it actually happens. And
we've had, seen it where an ex-employee will just take a bunch of data and use that maliciously. But Terry and I were talking at the start of this. Microsoft owns a company called Nuance. Nuance had Dragon Naturally Speaking, and that is what, it's probably its biggest use is in healthcare, where providers would dictate notes. So they'd come, you go see your doctor, and then after you left, they would go, hey, just saw Blake, he's got X, Y, and Z, and then save it into the medical record so they wouldn't have to type it all in. And now it's a cloud-based system that ties into cloud-based medical records. Well, that Nuance is owned by Microsoft. It's like the big giant voice-to-text system in the industry. Well, there's a healthcare system out in Pennsylvania that just announced a breach, Geisinger Health. So Geisinger Health uses Nuance. Nuance had an employee that they terminated. They terminated the employee, but failed to terminate his access. And so that ex-employee now with a case of the butt, ends up making a very unwise life choice and goes in and exports thousands of medical records and other private information, names, medical, account numbers, social security numbers, birth dates, all this stuff that you could go, steal someone's identity. And maybe he was doing it maliciously, maybe he was doing it for money. But if Nuance had closed all of his accounts and audited them, so it's a checklist audit. That's what we go through when we terminate an employee, is we know what access they have everything to. Had they done that, this wouldn't have happened. But what's a medical record worth, Terry? Do you know? It's worth a lot more than a financial record.
Probably not what it used to be. I think they're so common nowadays, and most everyone's medical records have been breached at one point or another. I think probably the bigger value is not in selling them individually, but then extorting the healthcare company to not, allowing you to release them. So there's typically some sort of an extortion scheme that goes on. Like, we've got these records. I do know that HIPAA has a fine per record as well. So if those records do get released, there's going to be a HIPAA fine per record.
Yeah, and it's going through, and we do what we can. We know what accounts that they have for email and stuff, but there's a lot of other stuff that doesn't necessarily fit into IT. And so you want to make sure that you have a checklist, and every employee that leaves, whether voluntarily, because there's been voluntary departures where people have then left and gone insane and attacked the company or done something inappropriate, taken money. But, it's changing door codes, changing the alarm code, changing, making sure that they don't exist in your business Amazon account, in your Home Depot account, or whatever it is, that they are removed from anything and everything that you use for accounting. And if you sit down to really analyze it, it is very surprising that the amount of accounts that you have, and and so it just adds up. So a policy for that, and something that you guys live whenever an employee leaves, it's not just stop their 365 account. It's the 365 account plus Amazon and everything else, and the door codes and the access to the EHR.
Hey, Blake, I got something on employees that leave.
Yeah.
So, typically what we'll do once they go, let's just say call it 30 days, 60 days, we'll leave their email active, because clients could be communicating with them, and we don't want to lose sight of that. So I'll say, okay, I'm going to monitor, Joan's email account for the next 60 days. And, hopefully by then it'll all flesh out. Is that something we probably shouldn't be doing?
Well, did you want to make sure you change their email address. So, or not, I'm sorry, not their email address, their password. So, and their multi-factor authentication, so that they cannot get in. The most secure is to just nuke everything, but you got to decide, do you want to keep backups of their email forever? Was it a key person, right? So if Susan ever retires, you're probably going to keep backups of her email, right? But you can also turn it into a group mailbox. So depending on who it is, you can change it to a group mailbox and have all the email go into there, and track it that way. You can also take, and if you kill the email address, you can create an alias so that anybody emails Heidi at wilklowandassociates.com, the alias just goes into Keith's mailbox.
Okay.
So there's a couple different ways, but usually we'll change the password for a month or two and then follow up and remove them.
Okay.
Unless I'm making a bad decision by doing that, Terry.
No, I think the key is to cut off the employee access to your tenant first, and then figure out how to, deal with any emails that come in after they've departed.
Yeah.
So copying the account or creating an alias, I think, is a good way to go.
I know when our staff leaves, you guys usually create that shared mailbox, and that usually is very helpful for us. And it also goes directly into your inbox too, if you have it set up appropriately. So that usually helps.
Yeah. And you schedule them. If it's a unpleasant conversation, if you're terminating somebody, you say, all right, 10 o'clock, so far I like you, Keith, but I'm going to fire you, man. At 10 o'clock Tuesday morning, we are terminating Keith. And, CCS, are you ready? You guys control his 365 and his, whatever else accounts. And, then they reach out to, Heidi, hey, we need you to go into QuickBooks Online and Intuit and everything else and kill his accounts at 10 o'clock because we're having that meeting with him. And you don't want to go, unless it's an immediate firing because Keith does something insane, is you want to do it while you're having the meeting with Keith, not 5 minutes afterwards, because, Keith might be a hothead and you terminate him and he goes out in the parking lot and then does something from his phone in 5 minutes. It's super quick to do things now, especially if you've got someone who really does have malicious intent. And even if Keith doesn't have malicious intent, it's easy for him to go in 5 minutes, start emailing the clients that he loves and say, hey, Blake, I left Wilklow and I'm going over to this accounting firm, give me a call later, right? Or any of that stuff. So while they're having the meeting to walk him out the door is when you want to terminate him. And so you want to make sure you plan that. And that's, so any other cheap things they can do, Terry?
No, I think you've got that one pretty covered, Blake, on the employee termination.
But just on cybersecurity in general.
Cybersecurity in general, I would say take a look at the CISA, Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Agency, CISA guide on small businesses. I'm going to drop a link in the chat.
Ooh, yeah.
This is a good guide. It's got 10, I think, very low cost things you can do to improve your cybersecurity program. Now, it doesn't mean that they're easy to do. One of the recommendations is to apply software updates. Well, it's simple to talk about, but it may take a lot of effort to do. But I would start with this guide to small business and implement those. And when you've got these in place, then you're ready, for next steps and taking your security up to the next level.
Yeah, so that's this one. So yeah, is this one you're talking about?
That's the one.
Yeah, and so yeah, if you can throw that in the chat. But yeah, a lot of it is just what we've been talking about: tabletop exercises, planning for an incident, a culture of security. Just always, being aware of it and talking about it.
I think an important point they make in this document is, number one, they start with the leader of the organization. The leader of the organization, whether it's president of the company or CEO or the owner, has responsibilities to ensure that security is in place. And then below that, they recommend appointing someone to be the security manager. They don't necessarily have to be, a penetration tester or a hacker or, security expert, but someone's got to be in charge of implementing security. Otherwise, no one's in charge. Yeah. And just like, safety programs don't happen because, there's a poster that says be safe. Someone's got to be in charge of thinking of new ways to constantly communicate safety and same with security. It involves education, it involves some products, it involves some security protections, but someone in the organization has to be constantly driving and pushing it.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of this is stuff we do for people. So we do the patching, and the patching is not just your Windows updates either. It's much more. You've got applications that have patches, but also your firewalls, your switches, your wireless, all that stuff is involved now. And this always makes people angry. We try not to let people be administrators on their computers, because there's ways around that now. There's software we can add so that they're not administrators, but can still do things like update QuickBooks and stuff. So, but yeah, this is good information, and I think the biggest thing is it's a culture of doing it. All right, we got 4 more minutes left. Any other questions out there? Anybody have an idea of what they would like to chat about at the start of August?
I've got one question, but it's not about August.
Okay.
So I'm out there doing my work and I get a redirect. Is this sufficient enough to close down the browser, or should I immediately just hit my off button on my computer and completely shut the whole thing down and then run a scan later? I've always been curious about that. Like, what degree do I need to react to a redirect?
Well, it depends on where they redirect you to. I mean, a lot of legitimate websites will redirect you to other resources, but it sounds like maybe you have the sense that you've been redirected to a malicious website.
Yeah, kind of what I think Jazzy said her dad was experiencing. You go to a website, a bunch of bells are going off, and they say Microsoft notices that you're under attack. Call this number, do whatever. If I land on one of those, if there is a best course of action, what would it be?
Well, it's really hard to say. All those different sites are run by different people, and some of them may have exploits they try to run against your browser. If you have an outdated browser, there's a possibility that you could get compromised. I think, in general, if it's just a pop-up that says you've gotten, some sort of a virus or you need to call us, just shutting down your browser and opening up a new one should be sufficient. But I can't say that in all cases. Some of those websites might have more sophisticated attacks against a vulnerability in your browser. They might, load a page with JavaScript that does something on your PC. So it comes down to having those protective measures on your system. Things like not only traditional antivirus, but what we call next-gen endpoint detection and response, EDR. And, so it can detect malicious activities that are not necessarily a computer virus. So, having those detection measures in place to say, okay, we know that we've now been compromised and we need to take appropriate actions. In general, though, the pop-ups are pretty benign, and you can probably just shut down your browser.
Okay, so I don't necessarily need to get CCS on the hook real quick and say, hey, look at my computer, I'm seeing this and I'm freaking out. I mean, I know that at times that might be appropriate for a guy like me, and I'm just not savvy enough sometimes to know, well, should I leave it up and let CCS take a look at it, while it's up, or just go ahead and turn off the computer and reboot,
Well, if you hit print screen, that'll grab a screenshot of it.
Okay, that's a good thought.
And then, give your computer a restart and, close the browser. But it's super easy to build a web page, and to build something that just looks scary and says, give us a call, you are in trouble. And so that's, what they're going to do most of the time. It's a little bit harder to create a malicious web page that's actually going to infect you. It's easier to get you to call them, and then they remote into your computer and install malware that way. So,
okay.
What's up, Aaron?
Quick question. I wasn't here at the last one. I was out of town. Wondering if you guys have already talked about AI for noobs, like what you'd recommend, ChatGPT or OpenAI, all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's what we did last month. We can chat about it again, or I can send you the link after
Okay.
it gets to the marketing guys and they, remove the pauses and stuff. And
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm not expecting like a tutorial or anything. I'm just curious what your recommends are. So
yeah, no, ChatGPT is free. There's a paid version that's a little bit better. It depends on really what you're using it for. For marketing, Jasper's pretty good. If you're in Microsoft, you can get Copilot, but it's $300 a year or something. Nice thing about Copilot is you can turn it on for your business, and then it will search your OneDrive and everything else and keep it secure. So, and so whereas you don't want to go post financials, you don't want to go, drag out your P&L and stuff and put it into ChatGPT, because ChatGPT has been reported to have leaks and stuff that get out there, whereas Copilot is all within the Microsoft platform. So
okay, yeah. If you guys did that last time, I would love a recording.
okay,
I would love that link too.
Huh?
I would love that link too.
Okay, maybe we do another AI one. Keep people entertained. It's a interesting tool to use. So
I mean, I would love to learn AI and how it's now interacting with Excel, particularly. That would be awesome.
Copilot does that, Jazzy, is what
Okay.
I'm saying, because it's a Microsoft program. So that's the difference between like ChatGPT and stuff. So with Copilot, it will integrate with every Microsoft program. So your Word document, your Excel, your PowerPoint.
So you're saying I have to sell Sutton on Copilot for $300 a year?
It depends. Yeah. There's a free trial. You can take the free trial on it, take it for a test bin and see if you actually like it, Sometimes it's super useful. But always, yeah, like Blake's saying, there's always the bad side of something that is supposed to be good. So, but Aaron, we can chat a little bit about it too if you want, when you and I sit down and meet.
Yeah,
there's a lot of options out there.
One thing cool about Copilot, I'm still trying to figure Copilot out, where I can use it in Excel and where it works in Word. But one of the cooler things was on PowerPoint. So we did a proposal to a local community, a local town here, and I did the whole write-up of the 30-page proposal, and then submit that, and then you got to do a presentation. And I went to Copilot and said, hey, go grab this Word document over here and create me a presentation to the board. And it sat there in the background and it churned for 5 minutes, and then it just created like a 30-page presentation with all the appropriate, most of the graphics were appropriate to what the topic was. And then with AI, you always have to go back and proofread to make sure it sounds like you, and make sure that it, sounds appropriate. The other cool thing is I just did it from nothing. So we have a bunch of our world with logs and stuff in our servers are all on the military time, 24-hour clock, and they're all tied to GMT, which is sitting over in Europe. And so when you go through and you read logs, it's kind of a challenge sometimes if you've not lived it in the past. So I went out, I decided to do some training for our employees, our techs, on looking at logs. And I just had ChatGPT say, create me a presentation of the difference between the 12-hour clock in Mountain Time and the 24-hour clock in GMT, and how it used in logs. And it created 90% of what I wanted, with some examples of, that, 11 a.m. Mountain Time is 1900 GMT time, and this is why and stuff. So it's pretty cool stuff.
I love all the AI stuff. I mean, Google reviews, easy, respond to this, and then it helps. So, but yeah. But yeah, this class, I loved it. I took some great notes and definitely some eye-opening stuff, and I'm gonna go back and definitely look at the preparedness and stuff and see if we're ready. But thank you guys.
And happy to sit down with you and Sutton and talk through it as well. So if you want to get into some specifics. And Terry, if someone wants to audit their network and check it out, how in the world do they find you?
Well, easiest way is go to our contact page on our website, which is milehighcyber.com.
So he's really good at what he does. Unfortunately, he's not cheap or free, but He's, but he's very good, and he's he went to school up the hill, up the academy, so years ago. So good guy. Oh, and the other AI thing, I saw a little headline today. I didn't click on it yet. I got to go back and look at it. China now is developing AI-enabled rifle-toting dogs, robotic dogs. So Skynet's coming. So find yourself a tunnel to hide in, a drainage ditch, something. But all right. Any ideas for next time? Anybody want to talk about something? Otherwise, I'll come up with something interesting. Okay. All right. Good to see you all. Thanks for coming. Have a good rest of your week. And happy July.